Good morning, everybody. I am excited to be on the show here with Bill. Sorry, Bill, I'm covering your face there. We don't need that there.
It's all good.
Well, all that said is what you saw on LinkedIn chat come through. It's good to see everybody. Please say hello if you're on the show. If you're tuning in right now, I want to know, where are you tuning in from? I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Bill, where are you tuning in from this morning?
Maryland, near Washington, D.C.
I love it. We've got coast to coast, well, Midwest to coast, not quite coast to coast. And then for the MSP folks in the room, what's your biggest headache right now around AI? Like, what do we want to kind of weave today's topic around? We can go into delivery, sales, staffing, process. This is a open Q&A show. I have a theme that I want to talk through with Bill, but we'll pull topics from the audience and weave them in where appropriate. But that's enough about me. My name is John Harden. I'm the host of the Coffee Chats, and this show's not about me. It's about Bill. And so, Bill, we're going to jump into some segments here. But before we do that, I always love to hear the story. Give me the 5-minute Bill story. Like, where are you? Where have you been? And where are you now? And lead me off with, what are you thinking about with AI? And before I do that, good morning, Jordan. Can't wait to see you. And thanks, Brett. Hello as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good morning to everybody. Quick 5-minute. Let's see. From high school to the Marine Corps, from the Marine Corps to the government section, working in the government, executive level. From there, private sector as a CIO. Left there, decided I'm not big on red tape and politics, decided to start my own company, jumped into the deep water, started Balancelogic in 2004. Rocked and rolled, did some acquisitions, started a couple other companies, switched on and off, pivoted, with the market from break fix to, block hours to MSP, and now recently to what I'm calling an MTP.
I love it. You did that in like 30 seconds, man. I know your story. You could have done 5 minutes, but that's okay.
Well, I could go deeper. I mean, I want to make sure I stayed in time frame.
I like it. Look, I think this is going to be a really well-attended and engaged conversation because we already have people chiming in, right? Like Brett's asking, biggest issue, wrapping our heads around what we're offering. That's the show today. That's what we're going to talk about, offerings and scalability and repeatability. And Brandon, I'm with you. This is the boring part, but it is my favorite part. I love boring. And I think, honestly, in the AI noise, we need to zone in to boring. We need to get out of all this friction going on. And so before we get started, Bill, just a couple quick hitters. Like, what's your favorite AI tool you're playing with these days?
Oh, man, I could give a selfish plug, but I would say there's so many out there. I mean, there's hundreds out there. I think, and they're for different reasons, right? So for Claude, I like, a lot of, I don't want to say scientific, but stuff that's very detailed, how-tos for specific applications. And then over on the ChatGPT side, more of articles, kind of documentation I like. And then there's one that I'm not sure the audience out there is familiar with, but it's called napkin.ai. And I love to use that for my presentations as well as documentation. So quick thing about it is basically it's a napkin. Like we all heard the stories from back in the day where you're at a bar and you come up with this great idea and you write it on a napkin and it becomes this big multi-million-dollar business, right? Well, these people came up with an AI tool called napkin.ai, and I absolutely love it, which is basically you can take a paragraph, you can take a bulleted list, whatever content that you have, a whole document, you paste it in there on the napkin, you highlight it, you click a button, and it'll create a whole bunch of different visuals for you. Then you can select your visual and then customize it to whatever you want, including your brand. So I use that in presentations. I use that in a lot of my documentation and how-tos and SOPs.
I love that. I've written down now. I think a lot of people might have walked away with that one. I've heard of a lot of them, man. I have a chart of like 60 different things going on, and that's just for our MSP space, not even like all the outside tools. Napkin AI. And I know you have a shameless plug. We do have an opportunity to do a shameless plug here at the end of the show, so don't worry. We're going to give you a chance to tell everybody.
Okay, I was holding back.
I know, but I appreciate that. This isn't a pitch, it's a conversation, but there is room for your pitch at the end. So don't worry. You are building cool things, and there's a reason I wanted you on the show. Um, all right, napkin.ai. And then, you know, in your business, just thinking like, what is 2020, you know, as you think into 2026 and as you think about this MTP, like, what are some of those big, hairy things you're looking to solve? And then we'll jump into kind of some of the normal structured questions.
Yeah, 2026 is going to be super, super exciting. Anybody who knows me, I mean, you've known me, we've known each other for a long time, but anybody who knows me is I'm like Robert Frost, the path not taken, right? So I don't like doing what everybody else does, but I like doing my own thing. We've gone through different iterations of an MSP and the big argument of MSP versus MSSP, but I like to kind of do my own thing. So looking at an MSP and looking at AI coming in and then looking at vibe coding, all those different little things. I like to package things up in a nice little package with a bow on it. So I was like, what's the biggest challenge really in the industry and in the SMB when it comes to technology providers, right? And I said, the biggest missing piece is MSPs throw a lot of tools out there that, they're selling, the shiny new tool, $99 pen test, whatever it may be. But what the big part that's missing is who owns that technology. And I don't mean own it from an ownership point of view. I mean own it from a responsibility point of view. So a lot of it is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, here's this great tool we have. We can do this, we can do that. And I'm like, that's great. But at the end of the day, if there's no governance on there, if there's no responsibility, no accountability, you're going to run into the same problem. You can have the best tools in the world. You can have the best experience in the world. You can have the best client in the world. But at the end of the day, who owns it, right? So I took that, to get an answer to that question and then combine all these other things into a pretty little package, if you will. And that's how I came up with the managed technology provider. Whereas what we're going to do is we're going to own that technology from an accountability perspective, from help desk all the way up to fractional CISO services, fractional CIO services, and in between is going to be all of your managed services, all your software development, because everybody likes that vibe coding and little applications they want to run for different things, as well as AI. So we're going to have that whole stack, and we're going to help that client have that ownership and that accountability of it.
I love it. You teed me in. If you did it intentionally, well done. But I think that there's a reason we're talking about this topic with you. That's the way your brain thinks. You said package with a bow. I love that. We're going to pull that one all the way through the show because that's what we're going to start talking about. The structure of MSP delivery, the boring, some people call it boring. And I think it is boring, but it's like the really important part of this whole thing. Like a lot of the industry, I believe, is kind of in this sense of paralysis because they're looking at like tool here, tool there. And what they should be thinking is the way you're thinking, which is structure and then fill in with solutions instead of tool here, just define your structure, plot in your tools that fit and facilitate, and then move on. And I think that breaks through the noise. And I think that's what a lot we'll talk about. And so kind of my first question to you, Bill, as we get going, you said package with the bow, and that to me reads structured delivery, right? Like we're going to do something fairly structured with our customers. What are the kind of those core building blocks that every MSP needs to help facilitate as it pertains to AI, right? We're an AI show, big surprise. Like as it pertains to AI, what are you looking at? Is it people? Is it process? Is it tooling? Is it governance? Is it, what you just said? Is it ownership? Is it a little bit of everything? Are there some areas that are more important than others?
Well, I mean, I think it's a touch of everything, right? And, every piece of that puzzle, there's varying, importance, if you will. But I think the most important thing is, and it's anything that we should have been doing in the IT world and the MSP world is there a need for it, right? We shouldn't be selling our clients AI because it's the new shiny tool out there, right? Because then you're just going to run into multiple issues, whether it's security or responsibility or, the customer being upset at you because the AI is not working and you didn't put any, structure in place, right? So I think, is there a need for it? If there is, start having a conversation with the clients, even if you're not selling AI, is talk to them, make them aware. It's the old adage of educate, right? Educate, nurture. So talk to them about AI, see if they even know what it is. Not everybody says AI, but what really is AI, right? That's a big encompassing word. But talk to them, see if they know what it is, see if they're educated on what it is, and if there is any security implications on it. And just start having those conversations. And then from there, it's like, is there a need? Is there a solution? Is there an outcome that is there that they can actually bite into? And then start having that conversation with them. But even more important than having the conversation and educating is make sure that you know what the hell you're doing with it, right?
Yeah.
Just because you know how to use ChatGPT or you know how to use Claude or whatever, that doesn't mean you know AI. It doesn't mean you can sell AI services. It's correlative to the $99 pen test. Just because you can go online and get a $99 pen test does not mean that you're an MSSP and that you could do pen testing now, right? There's so much more in between. The same with AI. Know what you're doing, be able to educate your client, and be able to, provide that service before you even talk about structure of a service.
I like it. Ori asked a question. I want to weave it in. It won't. It's an interesting topic. Have you obviously seen Anthropic and their decision to lower their safety standards? Yeah. I think that this is a good, interesting topic because as we talk about packages, Ori, this is a great question that we can pontificate on Anthropic from the MSP industry. I want to kind of get this lens from yourself. Like, how are we instilling trust in an era of change that they won't change their standards over time? So kind of what I want to get from you first, Bill, is like your react, whatever you're open to kind of share. I know it's kind of an interesting topic there. But with their lower safety standards, does that change your consideration, or do you think it's something you educate your customer on maybe? And then how do you package up and like build that trust that you won't change your standards over time, especially in an era where you can't control the models maybe in a lot of cases?
Well, yeah, I think first I'm going to semi-dodge your question.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll answer. No, I'll answer it, but here's my take. Today, there's not a damn thing that you can believe that you see on the TV. Yeah. You don't know what to believe. And I can give so many examples of news cycles of that go out there. You just don't know what to believe. You hear 5 different stories. So how do you know which one is correct? How do you know which one is real? So I'm not even giving that any, I won't say I'm not giving it any thought. Obviously it's thought, right? But I'm not really making it change my life, so to speak.
Yeah, I think to your point, sorry to interrupt. I think it just
goes go ahead.
Like education, right? Like just you got to know what you're doing. You got to stay educated on the topic, right? Like I ultimately think, we have no control of what the models are going to do, and we have no control of what the vendors are going to do. And that doesn't put us in an advantageous spot. But what it does mean is we should probably stay attuned to whatever we put in that package of tooling. And we have to be educated on what that package of tooling, and we can't just let it sit there and just irresponsibly put it in our customers' environments. And so a little weave in and out. I know I get where you were going, but thinking of like how we put it in the packages, we have to own and educate what's going on there.
100%. Because you again, the operative word here is control. You can't control it. There's nothing you can do. Again, we'll use that same phrase from earlier. Put it in a big, beautiful box with a bow on it, but one change completely throws that out of play. So that's why I say you have to educate, you have to nurture, you have to, you can talk guardrails all day long, but does it really mean anything in the grand scheme of things if somebody makes a change that you have no control over? So I say take it with a grain of salt, understand what you're doing, again, with anything, understand the risks.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Does it move you to a world? I'm just curious. This is not in the flow, but does it move it to a world where, if we know that the models are kind of out of our hands and we're delivering models potentially in our customer environments, like what does that change as we think about packaging? Does it change anything? Do we just still have to ultimately choose an offering and trust in the vendor, or how do we think about it differently as we're putting together what we're going to put in front of the customers, or what we're going to put in our bow, box with a bow on it?
I don't think and again, anybody who knows me, this is my personality, right? I don't think we need to really worry about that, right? because again, we're using the term AI in a 10,000-foot view. Are you putting MCP servers in your client? I mean, are you building app? Like, what are you doing with AI? I think most MSPs are not going to be doing that, right? We're talking about more generative AI or simple AI when it comes to Make.com or Zapier or something like that. You're not going to build these crazy AI applications for them. I mean, that's not what most MSPs do, right? So it's the same with any software development. You build a software development. I mean, you know this, probably way more than a lot of people, in our circle, but you build that application. And if one of those dependencies or those compilers change, your entire application's changed. You can't control that, right? So there's things that we can't control. So you have to keep that in mind when you're integrating AI. And but again, go back to understand what AI is, and also understand. I'll throw a little tidbit out there. A lot of people don't realize AI has been around since 2007. It's just not been in the public face, and it's not been the generative AI that we know and love today. But AI has been around since 2007. So most people getting to AI now, when it came to the forefront last year or in 2024, from 2007 to 2024, there's that missing gap of people that have been working on AI that most of us have not been involved in AI, right? So there's a lot of stuff about AI we don't know. I guess I'll close that statement with that.
No, I think it's good. And I kind of weave this around. I'm going to bring us back home, back into the main thought process here. It's a good question, Ori, and I like to kind of pontificate on the audience questions. So, thanks for throwing us a bit of a hardball this morning over a cup. I don't think it's a hardball. I just think everything's a little charged these days. It doesn't matter what topic you get into. But we'll stay into the lane of packaging. But Ori, thank you for the question. Feel free to ask some more. Would love to keep going on these tracks. You got me thinking how we can weave this together. Is you said the words custom development. You said the words building software and vibe coding and all these things that I keep hearing the industry leaning into as answers and solutions for AI with their customers. And I kind of I would love to get your reaction to this opinion, because it's going to share my opinion. Then I want to hear what you think and challenge me if you think I'm wrong. I think the industry is starting to look at, like, maybe I vibe code an app for my customer, or maybe I automate a workflow for my customer, or maybe I build an agent for my customer as an answer. And I go back to my 2007 days of MSP, or not MSP, because we were an MSP, we were a break fix shop, and my break fix bells start firing off. And I hear all these, I'm going to build these agents and these workflows and these vibe codes and these things. And I go, you're just doing custom development and you're just charging break fix after it breaks. Like, what are people doing jumping all the way back to the break fix era when trying to do AI? And so, personal opinion there, right? I'm curious to get your reaction. Like, do we feel like we're reverting the break fix? And is that ad hocness just because we don't know how to repeat packaging? Or what does it look? Why are we going into that space that we've kind of navigated multiple times over the decades in the industry?
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's what I was alluding to earlier, right? It's the shiny new tool of AI. Oh, I can do this for AI, I can do that for AI. And they're selling it as a tool, whereas it should be sold as a system.
Yeah.
Right. It's as you know, software development, you build this software application, whether it's a CRM or a proposal management system, whatever it may be. You don't charge the client when it breaks and then the development time to fix it.
Yeah.
You take 20 to 30% of the price of the application in 1 year. You take that 20 to 30%, and then that's your maintenance fee. You break that into 12 months. Now there's a monthly maintenance fee to manage that application. I think the same applies to AI. If you're building an AI system or some type of automation for your client, you can't charge them an hourly rate every time it breaks. You have to sell it as a solution and manage that solution and charge a management fee, if you will, or maintenance fee, whatever you want to call it, and constantly manage that automation or that AI integration, whatever it is that you're providing, as a service, as a solution throughout, whether however you do it, quarterly, annually, monthly, however you do it.
I like that. I think it still harkens me back to the 2005 era, but I like what you're saying there of the maintenance having a maintenance services contract. I think that ultimately became how we go from break fix to services. I think eventually it will become a bigger package of iterative transformation and iterative packages of maintenance that kind of becomes a process. And that leads me into this like kind of next thing. Look, like, you know, I'm leaning in towards how do we get standardized, but standardized is rigid. AI is like pushing the boundaries of rigidity, right? Like I can't be the cost, or I can't be the managed service provider, VCIO, VCIO, whatever you want to call the person, and just be the no man. I can't be the no person who keeps telling them, no, you can't use this AI tool. No, you can't use that AI tool. So how do you balance that? Like, how do you balance that standardization without being the no person, keeping the flexibility of AI without being rigid?
Great question. And a lot of MSPs are going to face this. And this is where I go back to my roots of, you know, after the Marine Corps, going into the corporate environment and being a CIO. And I'll go back one quick second, then forward to make my point. You know, as I was growing up in the industry, there was a fork in the road. And one of my mentors said to me, at some point, you're going to have to either pick the management route or the technical route. You can't do both, right? You can't be good at both. Me, the kind of person I am, I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm going to split that down the center. And I did. And it was very, very challenging. And I believe I've done it successfully, but it's kind of that same thing, right? So you have the tool of AI or the system of AI, and then you have the CISO, right? Which is no, 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 or you have your governance or compliance. No, no, no. And they fight each other. So the number one thing is you have to know your client. You have to have the conversations with the client. You have to lay, you know, the real world out to them and say, hey, look, but just like any CIO would do, right? You know, back in the day, CIO was in charge of technology. What made a great CIO back then into today is it's not a technology role anymore. It's a business role. It's right. It's a business title where you have to take your technology outcomes and business outcomes and marry them together and align them. And I think that's the same situation here is you have security and compliance, but then you have these other applications or these systems that are in place. You have to have the conversations to say, look, there has to be a happy medium. We can't have enough security to where we're not being able to conduct business, but at the same time, we have to conduct business. So do we relax security? It's kind of that same thing. We, as MSPs, you can't tell your client, no, 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 but having those conversations, educating them and saying, okay, look, here's the best way to, here's the best outcome. Here's the best solution that's going to meet all the checkboxes, or at least most of them, and come to a compromise. Because if not, you're just going to be, you know, fighting it every day.
Yeah, and I think this goes back last week. I was having a show with Abby, and we were talking about, or no, it was almost 2 shows back now with Artie, and we were talking about building trust now, whether you're delivering AI or not. Ultimately, it is a business discussion. It's not a technology discussion. This one more than ever, right? Like in the other epochs from like, okay, we're going to move to 365. Yes, that was a business discussion, but ultimately a lot of tech heaviness. When we went from AV to cyber, a lot of tech balance, you know, layered here. And now as we're going from, you know, I guess I'd call it business as usual to Gen AI. I don't even know what was before Gen AI, what you just call it. It's a lot more business process. And that's where I think people get thrown off because you know, our previous epochs in the industry have been, I'd call it at least 50-50 technical and business. This one feels a lot more like 80% business, 20% technical, because it's impacting so much of the desk workers and the technical job. And that's not a technical problem to solve. That's a business problem to solve. And so I'll let you rip on that. And then Brandon has a wonderful comment, I think, to pull in here.
Yeah, just quickly, it's kind of, you look at it as the same as what we're going through in the industry of CMMC. It's part of it's technical, but a majority of it is a business decision. How are you going to conduct your business when all these different people and employees and teams have access to CUI, right? Well, you could throw technology at it, but that doesn't mean that's the right thing for the business. So you have to have the business discussion. You have to say, how's my business operate and how can I supplement my business, or how can I improve my business without putting my business at risk? And that's what MSP should be having that conversation with their clients.
I cannot agree more. I think that is a perfect framing for it. I think that's why governance sits at the front of a proper AI implementation. I think before you get to governance, you have to get to strategy, which is what you kind of talked about earlier, and then you start to get into governance because you have to know what risks they're willing to take to build a package to determine what you're going to implement, right? Like you can't just come in and say no, 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 because if the CEO says, I don't care that we're using ChatGPT for free, I acknowledge the risks and I'm okay doing that, then
they accept the risk.
They set the risk and you have to just deliver what they want. Because if you can't find a way to work in their confines and have them accept and acknowledge in a documented format, by the way, the risk, then they'll find somebody who will. And I think that's something to really look at. I pulled in this. I think it's more of a comment. I see what Brandon's saying here, right? Couldn't we say this is how SaaS was created? I think that's what I was going back to when I was saying it was like the 2005 era. Like it feels like we're at the dawn of, I'd hate to say it, like the dawn of SaaS, but for MSPs, because we're figuring out this uptime v outcome era. And I think there's a lot of learnings we might be able to pull from the dawn of SaaS. Any that jump out to you, Bill? You know, any learnings from the past epochs that you think really apply today?
I mean, go one era before SaaS, or actually probably 2 eras before SaaS. What was it called then? We were called an ASP, an application service provider. And I remember one of the first applications we hosted was QuickBooks.
Yeah.
You know, we were gold, right? We were the best in town because we took QuickBooks from the desktop and hosted it on the server. And now we were an application service provider. And then, you know, that went to, I think, web applications, and now it's SaaS. But it's where the world's going. You know, everything is going to be in the cloud. It's not going to be at the desktop or hardware level. It's going to be at the cloud. And you got to find a way to be able to manage that. And it's going to get easier and easier. And I caution MSPs and other businesses, just because there is an application out there, a SaaS app or a web app, whatever we're calling it, for $49 or $59, don't grab that, sell it to your client and say, all problems are solved, everything is great. It's going to be disaster.
I did not pay you to say that, but I still threw my arms up in excitement because that is what I've been yelling, I think, on LinkedIn for the last 6 months is like, whoa, 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 hold your horses. This isn't a race. We need to do it responsibly. And responsibly, AI transformation is not a tool implementation. And that is my like high horse, but I'll get off of it. This isn't my show. It's your show, Bill. Well, I guess it's kind of my show, but I want to interview you. So, Brandon, I hope that helped. Did that kind of give you some guidance of what you were looking for on that question? I think, Bill, you did a wonderful job there. But follow up if you have another question with it, Brandon. I want to switch in. You used the word governance, and I really loved that track we were going down there on governance. And so while every project, I'm afraid to use the word project because I know we're so allergic to projects in the industry, but every AI transformation or every AI implementation or every project, there's some things that just are standard, whether it's a custom bespoke automation and workflow or a Copilot enablement or I'm going to accept ChatGPT for free. Like those three are completely different implementation investments. What are those things that are standard that have to be done regardless of what the outcome is that the customer ends up with? Does that make sense? Like, what are the things that you must do no matter what the implementation ends up looking like?
Yeah, and again, I don't know why people are afraid of the word project. I love that word.
Yeah.
Right? We do projects, and I think that's a challenge. And and we're talking about MSPs, right? So if MSPs embrace that, it'll change their business. What is a project? It's a defined beginning and a defined end. Putting AI or an AI implementation, whatever fancy word or buzzword you want to add onto it, there's no end. So how do you measure that? How do you measure success, right? You have to have a beginning and an end. If you're doing a waterfall style or agile or a combination of hybrid, doesn't matter. There's still a project. There has to be some point where there's an end that you can measure and then have ongoing, checks or milestone checkpoints. Every month we check this, every 3 months we check this, but there has to be a defined beginning and a defined end. If not, how do you know how well you did? Because it's working? Yeah, no, that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question completely. Let me know if I did.
No, I think I can weave it perfectly. You kind of did, and I think what you gave me is saying I like that point, right? You have to have a starting point and an end point, even if it's a managed service, right? Even if it's one of those things that you sell and you add maintenance. I mean, there is kind of not the end, I guess, is the beginning of something new there, right? Because you're ending the project and starting maintenance. So that's where my like engineering brain goes. I don't know. There's no end in that, but what I think there is setting a objective and a goal, and there can always be more and more goals to deliver. And as Brandon said, starting with a problem to solve helps you set the goals. And so I'm curious. Go ahead. No, challenge me.
Yeah, yeah, Brandon, you're right 100%. If not, you're doing a project for no reason or an implementation for no reason. But I want to clarify. I wasn't saying managed services should be a project, because that's not correct. But any implementation should be project phased or project like. You have to have a start date. You have to have an end date. If not, there's no measurement of success. And along all those, you have to have the communication. You got to talk to the stakeholders. I mean, all these different things that you have to do from project principles, if you will. You don't have to call it a project, but there has to be some method to the madness, and there has to be points that you have to have checks and balances and manage yourself. So that's why I say what I said earlier about selling AI or automation, whatever, which way you want to do it, they are completely different, but it should be as a solution, right? So you have a beginning and an end. You have fact finding, you have discovery, you have, the goals, your objectives, you figure out what it's going to be, you implement that, or you execute the project. There has to be a point where you say, this was good, this was successful. There has to be some point where you can measure. From there, now it's managing the service, not managed services, but managing that service moving forward. There has to be some type of end checkpoint, if you will.
You were right. I interpreted it wrong.
That's okay.
I hear what you're saying, and now I see what you were after. I love that, and I think that's important, right? A lot of people kind of say we're going to implement this tool, but never start with what does a victory look like for you, or what does a win look like for you. And I think that's what Brandon was alluding to. Start with a problem to solve, but I think starting with a problem is one component of it, and then knowing what I guess for a lack of a better term, a win looks like when solving that problem is another part of it. They're two different elements of it. And we can start with the problem to solve, but if our measurability doesn't exist when we get to the end of implementation and the beginning of managed service,
you failed.
You failed. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, we're all on the same track here. Thanks for bringing me back in, Brandon and Bill. I guess I haven't had enough coffee this morning. I want to pull into another area, though. I want to talk about guardrails. I want to talk about governance, some of that stuff. I promised it'd be a boring show for us, so I want to get into the boring stuff. What are some of those guardrails MSPs should have deployed in customer environments before starting to offer, whether they're implementing an AI tool or whether they're enabling Copilot out of the box or something like that? Like, what are some of those guardrails that need to be in place? What are some of those questions that need answered?
Well, I think the number one is make sure you know what the hell you're doing. That's number one guardrail. Number one, like I said earlier, just because you can produce something in ChatGPT or Claude doesn't mean you know about AI or automations. Just because you have a Make.com account or a Zapier account doesn't mean you know how to do automations, right? So that's the number one thing. And then other guardrails, I mean, you have to have, again, it's with the conversation with the client, right? You have to let them know that it's kind of like, and I went to a client, I'll try and do a correlation. We had a new client meeting yesterday with a potentially new client. It's a healthcare provider. Went in there, did an assessment, and they had nothing. No firewall, no switch, no nothing. Their entire healthcare system, all their patient records, everything was connected to a Netgear router off of their ISP modem. And I was like, I could go into your parking lot right now in less than 2 minutes and own you, basically, right? So they have absolutely nothing there. So it's kind of the same with AI. If you just start dumping stuff into ChatGPT and Claude, it's out there in the world. You can't retrieve it. You can't say, oops, I made a mistake. So having the client understand it, having the MSP understand that, where you can't just take your profit and loss, throw it in there, come up with this pretty chart or whatever, and say, look, I built this automation for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client. Isn't this wonderful? No, you can't do that. So, but and that leads to AI policies, automation policies, all the different boring documentation. But I think starting with knowing what you're doing, understanding what the tool can do, because if you don't, there's no way that you're going to be able to implement guardrails at all.
I agree. I think you just glossed over something that a lot of people aren't doing, but I think is pretty dang critical. You said AI policies as if it was just a whimsical thing that everybody does.
Of course.
Yeah, doesn't everybody have an AI policy? Let's talk about that for a minute. What does that look like? What questions are we asking to really understand what the business wants to do around an AI policy?
Well, it's critical, right? It's go back to the day when social media was the next big thing. We did social media policies, right? Or you should have done those. Here, right? Here's what you can do as an employee. Don't post our company name or brand or address or anything out on social media without prior approval, or within these. Same thing when you develop a brand or a logo. You have certain restrictions that you have to follow when you use somebody else's logo, whether it's size or color. You can't just change their logo. Same thing, I correlate to when we're doing social media. You can't just blast stuff out there on social media. And I know I'm going to get kickback about privacy and stuff, but here's the thing: you don't own that company. You don't own those company assets, so you have no right just to post them wherever you want, right? So we did social media policies. Same thing with AI. We have to have AI policies. Hey, employees, hey, team, here's what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do on our company assets regarding AI. You can't put financial data in there. You can't put your QBRs in there and say, make it prettier with all of our company names on there. You can't take our internal processes and procedures and put them out there and say, hey, format this for me. No, 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 no. You can't do that. And that should be established in the AI policy.
And you talk about what they can't do. Are there any questions you're asking them, around tolerance or asking around risk, or talking about what they can do when you're writing this policy?
Well, I think policies are more not about what you can do, but about the restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So a policy is more of a kind of a guardrail, if you will, since we're talking about guardrails. It doesn't really say in a policy, you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. It's more of, here's the confined area that you're allowed to operate in, and explicitly, no, 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 these are the things that you cannot do. So
when you write that policy, are you helping your partners write those policies today? I'm curious.
Well, we have them, and then yes, we obviously help our client. Well, I mean, if the client, again, it goes back to the conversation. If the client wants that, we have clients that say, we got it, we're going to write our own policies and procedures. And we're like, okay, sure, we're here as a resource. You want us to review them. Then we have other clients that are like, yo, you guys do it. And we're like, okay, great. And we find that a lot as we're doing CMMC as well. Same thing when they're trying to get, their CMMC level 2, they take a shot at writing all their policies and procedures, figure out, oh, yeah, this is not what I signed up to do. Then we take over. And then there's other clients that are like, yeah, no, you just do it.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. I do like that review policy piece there too. Like, hey, we'll review it for you. We're happy to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not binary. When they roll those out, is that then, are you kind of leaning on them? Do you help them, talk to the employees about that's kind of a far reach. I don't know. I'm just asking questions here. Like,
yeah,
where does the relationship start and stop?
Well, and it's very, and it's, yes, that's a great question, because you have to be careful, because now you have legal issues and AR issues or HR issues. So another quick example, we were dealing with a security incident, had a security incident with a client. We implemented our IR plan. I'm the IR handler. We're doing it right. I'm doing the security incident investigation report, and I have to do interviews. I have to interview the people involved. Well, Some companies will just go interview your client's employees. You can't do that, right? You have to ask the client, hey, do you want to sit in with these interviews? Do you want to conduct the interviews? How do you want to do that? Because there's legal issues, there's HR issues that are involved with that. So kind of the same thing with the AI policies is that, again, it goes back to the conversation with your client. How much do you want me involved in helping you? But at the end of the day, you have to put the policies out because you can enforce them. I cannot enforce them.
Yeah. And Jordan asked a point here, and maybe I'll ask for a quick clarification, Jordan. You said the overlap of traditional staffing and AI role compression that's more here than folks know is really an angle I haven't seen a ton on governance discussion. So I see kind of a point. Maybe if you have something we can pull it in, I can ask Bill, but I think what you're saying maybe is like we're seeing, I don't know. I just ask if you have a question there to pull forward. I'd love to bring it up because I think you're on to something. I just want to see what you're thinking there. We're at 9:42. I like to wrap us out around 9:50, but maybe a little extra wiggle room. I know we both have 10 o'clocks. What haven't I asked you today? Like, we talked about guardrails, we talked about policy, we talked about education, we talked about accountability, we talked about balancing risk with the customers. I mean, we talked about quite a bit here. When we talk about repeatable packages, though, and repeatable delivery with clients, what didn't we talk about?
Well, obviously we did talk about price, and I don't think we want to talk about that. What haven't we talked about? Let's see.
Price. I can pontificate. I'm not asking you your price. How are you thinking of it? Like, is it hours on a project and a monthly retainer? What are you thinking about? And if you don't want to share, just say, hey, John, stop asking.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, again, it's like anything. And it's what is the market value, right? Yeah. Somebody who's just getting into it versus somebody who's implemented 100 plus automations, the price is going to be a little bit different, right? So the way we do it is, again, it's by system. So I'll give you an example. We built a system for a assisted living client we have, and they were getting so many calls in, so many leads in, all the messages were just lost. So we built an automation where when the receptionist takes a phone call, she enters it into a specific software, which I'll leave unnamed. She'll leave it into a piece of software. When it detects that, it will auto route to the person it's supposed to get, and then set update reminders that, hey, you have this message. The same thing with the leads. They enter the leads in, it goes to the different lead capturing managers, but then we also pull it from their franchise leads that they get from there and route them and do updates and reminders and notes and things like that. So something like that we charge $2,500 for, and then we charge $300 a month to manage it.
Services,
if that gives an idea.
Yeah, about 15% services and then labor. So labor plus 15 to 20%. That's what I would have guessed, right? Like, I think that's pretty standard back in the ASP days. You started throwing out ASP, Bill. I'm not an ASP. Look at me, man. I wasn't around ASP era, but I appreciate
showing my age. I know.
You give me the history lesson. I started in break fix. I've been around 17 years, but this industry has a heck of a lot more than 17 years. But I've
been doing this for 30.
I know. That's why you're on here. You're the smart guy on the show today, man.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's a really important thing, though, too, is pricing. And we didn't get into that. I would have actually really loved to have. I think there's a whole show on different pricing models and how that looks and how that could work. But we're running towards the tail here. Bill, I appreciate it. We've done a lot. I think there's a lot of valuable nuggets here. But try to recap it. This is the hardest part of the show normally for me, Bill, is just to recap for everybody in the audience. And we started the show kind of talking about the boring, and I think we got into some boring stuff today. In jest, right? Like we're talking about. You started the show by saying package with a bow, and then we started pulling the thread back on all those things that are in the package. You're doing some interesting things, right? You're talking about accountability, and you're talking about who are the champions and the stakeholders inside the business when it comes to AI, which I think is a really critical thing. You even asked the question that I don't think a lot of people are stopping to ask, which is there a need? Ultimately, I think that should be the very first question before anything goes on is there a need and what is the outcome? Later, we kind of pulled around outcomes. We said, while the outcome might be something, hand wavy or tangible, we need to know it and we need to measure against it. And an implementation, by the end of the implementation timeline, should have some level of a measurement. It should have, whether it's a 90-day project, a 2-year project, a 30-minute project. Like, if you started it and you're going to deliver it, you need to know what measurable looks like to know that your customer feels like they got the value that they signed up for when they paid you the bill. We talked about kind of those tough things right now. Right now, AI is a business decision. Ultimately, that means the business owners need to accept the risk. And if you're not having that conversation, that's an easy one to get started today. Like, talk to your next QBR. What do you have an AI policy? If you do, like you said, let me help you review it. Let's look at it together and double check that everything's covered. And then maybe there's things you're saying in that policy that as a managed service provider, you can be delivering. If they don't want shadow AI or they don't want people putting things in other models, maybe you can help them block it. And so just even opening the conversation can open a deeper relationship. And then we kind of started talking about the packaging. We said, hey, we have this implementation timeline of the managed service. I appreciate you sharing some of that pricing thinking there. I think there's a lot of value at the end for that. But one thing you said earlier in the show still sticks out to me. Don't sell tools, sell systems. And I think that's what a lot of this is around. And so as I think about systematizable, I don't know, I'm creating words, but we got to keep moving for the show's sake. As we think about systemizable packages, we talked about governance and governance around acceptable use policies. That's repeatable. We talked about understanding the outcomes and the goals on a project and implementing projects and having a maintenance fee after that. That's repeatable. We talked about going in and understanding what their business problems are and educating them around it. That's repeatable. We talked about some governance and compliance questions. That's repeatable. There's a lot of things that are repeatable in AI that don't require a big, deep AI play. And I think that's what I was trying to get at for today's show is like, there's a lot of boring stuff that needs to be done that doesn't require a massive project, that you can be helping your customer with AI today to begin building that trust. And so I did my best to recap it there, Bill. What do you think?
Perfect. It was perfect. I couldn't have done it better myself.
Yeah, I take a lot of notes. That's why I'm looking away from the show sometimes. I'm always listening. All right, we're at the tail here. We've got 5 or so minutes left. Bill, if you haven't ever been on the show, this is called the Espresso Shots Roundup. So this is a fairly simple process, but sometimes the questions are complex because Copilot generates them for me. So they're rapid fire questions. You have 1 sentence to answer them, but you have as much time as you need to think about them. And so in an AI era, what is one MSP business assumption that no longer holds up?
What is one? Oh, that your information out there is not shared with the world.
I like that. I think, I read a sentence earlier today that, oh my goodness. I read a sentence the other day that said, what was it? It was along the lines of Copilot doesn't overshare. Copilot shines a light on under permissions or something along those lines in the world that like, you see what I'm after? Like it's not Copilot stuff oversharing. You just never configured permissions correctly.
Right.
And so I think that goes into your point, like data is central to all this. We've done a couple shows on data, so I didn't want to pull too deep down there. I want to talk about these topics today. Maybe this is the same answer, but I'll let you answer it. What is the biggest risk MSPs underestimate when it comes to AI?
When it comes to AI, I think it's the same risk across the board is understanding your employees and what they're doing, as well as your clients' employees and what they're doing.
I think there's a lot to be said there in my last 5 years, Bill. What is one operational change every MSP should make this year?
Oh, one operational. I think, and I did this at my talk in Build It, I think 2 years ago. Policies, processes, and procedures in your MSP. If you don't have them documented, you don't have them reviewed, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And for the life of everybody, teach your staff what the difference between a policy, procedure, and process is. We don't write an SOP and say it's a how-to, they're different things.
I'll let you break the rule there, but I think you were on to something, and it's worth breaking the rule for. They are different things. All right, couple more questions, Bill, and then we're going to get to the show sign off. Best advice for MSPs trying to modernize and sell AI without overcomplicating it.
Oh man, I default to what I said is know it before you sell it.
That's a theme, Bill. I think if I surveyed the 50 shows or so I've ran so far, one ultimate thing that always comes down to it, and why I always run the show every Thursday morning, is we got to be educated. And every time I walk into the show, I walk away a little bit smarter. And so I hope everybody does as well. Final question. Finish the sentence. MSPs that win this next AI era will blank.
Educate themselves.
I like it. It's a free answer to end off the show. Education, which is why we have the show. My goodness, I'm losing my voice along the show. All right, Bill, you've been an amazing guest along the way. I think there's a lot here. Obviously, I walked away with a lot of notes. I think a lot of people were asking great questions. I just want to say a quick thank you to Jordan, to Brett, to Ori, to Brandon, and to everybody that was on the show. I saw I meant to bring it up earlier. I saw a lot of emojis and engagements around the medical client that had all their data accessible via Netgear router. Love that. And so thanks for engaging on the show, guys. I can tell you from my side, it makes it more fun. I'm sure, Bill, from your side, it's way more fun than feeling like we're talking in a vacuum. Yes, you're welcome. And thank you for the questions, Jordan. Sorry I didn't get back to it. We just ran out of time there. And so maybe I'll try to get an answer in LinkedIn DMs here later. Bill, this is your time, man. We got a couple more minutes to wrap up the show by 9:55. I said you get a shameless plug. Tell them how they get hold of you, why they get hold of you, and what they're going to learn if they take some time with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to get a hold of me is LinkedIn. I'm so close to 5,000 followers, so let's ramp that up and hit that 5,000 mark. Yes, that's the easiest way. Feel free, anybody, you have a question, you want to connect with me, brainstorm, wherever it is, let's do that. Absolutely. And what was your other part of the question?
What are you building? I'll ask the
question.
What am I
building? Yes. So I'm super excited about this. So I'll officially bring it out here. As you know, I own multiple companies. For the last year, I've been investing in this new company called Consulture Cloud. That new company now will have a new brand architecture that builds out a bunch of different SaaS applications around not just document management and governance, but also in the marketing space. So we were talking about building social media and blogs and automatically posting your social media content. We have an app for that called mymarketingcompanion.com. We've got some other customer service apps coming out as well, related to SaaS, where you can manage all of your change requests, your surveys, your change logs, all those different things. So those are coming out. I'm super excited about it. But I encourage everybody to check out mymarketingcompanion.com. And if you hit me on LinkedIn, I can give you a promo code that will give you 30-40% off whatever I'm feeling for the day.
So compliment Bill when you reach out to him, and he'll give you 40 is what I hear. But it might be 30 if you ask a tough question, Ori.
Right.
Ori gets 30. No, I love Ori. Ori's a brilliant guy. He's an indie guy. We need to catch up, Ori. We need to get some ramen soon. All right.
Yeah.
That's the end of the show, Bill. Will you be out at CCF? Are you coming out to CCF coming up here in March?
Yeah. I'll be at Zero Trust World next week, and then coming home for the weekend, then heading to Chicago to go to CCF.
Love it. All right. Well, if you don't slam the follow button on Bill's profile because he needs those he's so close to 5,000, find him at the halls at CCF or Zero Trust World. Shake his hand and have a conversation. He's a brilliant guy. I'm so grateful for you to be on the show, Bill. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a wonderful Thursday and have a wonderful week. Bye.